Hello everyone, welcome to the session for complete revision of engineering mechanics. We'll start with the introduction of engineering mechanics. First, we'll try to understand what is mechanics. It's a branch of physics which deals with the study of effect of system of forces acting on a particle or rigid body which may be act at rest or motion. So here we are going to study about the effect of system of forces. First, what is system of forces? If more number of forces which are acting on your body, then we call it as system of forces. And when these system of forces acting on a particle or a rigid body, and at that time if the body is at rest, it may be at rest, it may be at motion. So we are going to study about that effect. For example, the body is at rest, some forces are acting on it. So at that time, what is the criterion and what is the changes that are taking place in your body? You're going to study about that. Or the body may be in rest or may be in motion, right? And now we'll see the classification of mechanics, and this classification of mechanics is based on type of bodies. Okay, type of bodies. And now this mechanics is classified like three types, which are like these bodies may be in non-deformable bodies, deformable bodies, and the third one is continuously deformable bodies. And based on that, these mechanics is for rigid bodies, the mechanics is for deformable bodies, and the mechanics of fluids. That means the subject mechanics is divided into three subjects again, which is like mechanics of rigid bodies or non-deformable bodies, mechanics of deformable bodies, and mechanics of fluids. That means you're going to study about the mechanics of rigid bodies, you're going to study about mechanics of deformable bodies, and you're going to study about mechanics of fluids. But in this course, we are going to study about this one, which is mechanics of rigid bodies. This deals with the subject like engineering mechanics, and like these two will come in your coming semesters or coming years. And like mechanics of deformable bodies, you're going to learn in your subjects like strength of materials, theory of elasticity, and theory of plasticity. And strength of materials is also called with other names like mechanics of materials, mechanics of deformable bodies, like this. And next, third subject is mechanics of fluids. Here the fluid may be ideal fluids, viscous fluids, and incompressible fluids. And moreover, and this is the mechanics of continuously deformable bodies. Okay, continuously, which one will continuously deform? The fluids will continuously deform. Okay, coming to our subject, which is engineering mechanics, here you're going to study about rigid bodies. Clear? We'll try to see what is this rigid bodies and deformable bodies and everything in this session. And the next, here we are going to study about engineering mechanics, right? So we'll try to know what is engineering mechanics is. The subject of engineering mechanics is that branch of applied science which deals with the laws and principles of mechanics along with their applications to engineering problems. So actually the mechanics is the subject which deals with effect of system of forces on your body, right? And for that mechanics, we have different laws and the principles to be applied in your on your body or in your problem, right? So you're going to apply this to engineering problems. And next we'll see the classification of this engineering mechanics. And this classification is based on motion. Okay, is based on motion. And now the subject of engineering mechanics may be divided into following two groups, which is static, the first one, and the dynamics. First, we'll see what is statics. It is a branch of engineering mechanics which deals with the forces and their effect. Forces and their effect while acting upon the bodies at rest. When the body is at rest, and when you're going to study about the forces which are acting on that body and the effects on that particular body, then that subject is statics. And the next one, dynamics. It's a branch of engineering mechanics which deals with the forces and their effects while acting upon the bodies in motion. Okay, and if the body is in motion and the forces are acting on it, we are going to study their effect on the body. And the same thing, the subject of dynamics may be further subdivided into following two branches, which is like kinetics and the kinematics. And now we'll see what is this kinetics and the kinematics. And before that, once again, here static means you're going to study about the bodies when it is in rest and the effect of forces which are acting on it. Okay, and the dynamic means we are going to study about the bodies which are in motion and their effect by the forces. That means when the force is acting on your body, what are the changes that are taking place in your body? We are going to see that. And next, coming to the kinetics and the kinematics. And the first one is kinetics. It's a branch of dynamics which deals with the bodies in motion due to the application of forces. See, it deals with the bodies in motion, right? So dynamics will deals with the bodies when it is in motion. But here we have to consider the forces while solving the problems. Okay, which deals with the bodies in motion due to the application of forces. The motion is happening because of the force. And moreover, in kinematics, it is a branch of dynamics which deals with the bodies in motion without any reference to the forces which are responsible for the motion. See, here we won't consider, in kinematics, we won't consider any forces into consideration to solve the problems in the kinematics. But coming to the kinetics, we will consider the forces which are responsible for the body in the motion or some any other changes in the bodies. Okay, while solving the problems, we will consider the forces into the formula. Here in kinematics, we won't consider the forces into the form. Once again, the mechanics is about study of a body when it is in rest and motion, right? So when you are going to study about the rest, it is static, and when you are going to study about body when it is in motion, it is dynamics. Again, the dynamics is divided into two, which is like kinetics and the kinematics. So here in dynamics, the body is in motion, but here in kinetics, you are going to consider the forces. In kinematics, you are not going to consider the forces. And now we'll see about particle and the rigid body. And moreover, we'll try to understand what is deformable and the non-deformable. First, particle. Particle has a mass, but a size that can be neglected. For example, here some point is there. Here you can see. And now we can take the mass of it, but we won't consider the size and shape of that particular body. We won't consider that. Why? Because for the sake of convenience to solve the problems, when the forces which are acting on that, it will be easy to understand and it will be easy to solve the problems. For example, if you want to solve if you want to consider a earth and a moon, okay, which is rotating about this particular body, then we will consider these two, earth and moon, as a particles. That means we will consider the mass, but we won't consider the size and shape of that particular two bodies. Why? Because for the sake of convenience, the forces which are acting on it, all the forces will act at particular point. You can see here. So all the forces will act at the center, and these are the forces which are acting at the same point. Okay. So for the sake of convenience, for the sake of to solve your problems very easily, we are considering only the mass, but we won't consider the shape and size of that particular body. And moreover, all the forces will act at that particular point. And coming to the rigid body, it is also called non-deformable body. First, what is deform? Here, your body is there. When you are applying some pressure on it, it will changes its shape, right? Just like your plastic bottle. So when you're pressing that, or when you're applying some pressure on it, it will changes its shape, right? So the change of shape is called deformable. Even though if you apply the force, it won't change its shape, and those are non-deformable bodies. If it changes their shape, those are deformable bodies. If it won't changes its shape, then those are non-deformable bodies, and those non-deformable bodies are rigid bodies. Here we will consider the mass, and we will consider the shape and size. Okay, so we'll see here the definition of rigid body. A rigid body can be considered as a combination of all large particles in which all the particles remains at a fixed distance from one another, both before and after applying a load. That means here we have a particle, right? We assume like a particle. And now if you take one body, we have large number of particles in that particular body, and all these particles will be at the fixed point and will be at a fixed position from each other, fixed distance from each other. That means even though if you apply some force, it won't changes its shape, it won't changes the place of that particular particles. So the rigid body won't changes its shape. So that's why it is called non-deformable bodies. And moreover, even though if you apply the pressure, there won't be any changes in the body. Okay. But moreover, if you want to say whether rigid bodies are there in the earth or not, means there is no rigid body in the universe, or practically there is no rigid bodies. At any extent, any body, when you are applying some force, it will change its shape. But for sake of convenience, to solve the problems in the engineering mechanics, you are going to consider rigid bodies which, while applying the forces, it won't change the shape. If you want to consider that change of shape, then you can't able to study mechanics in a classical way. We have to go through in a statistical way. We'll continue in the next session. Thank you.